with the PowerPoint, and also we're recording the webinar. So you'll have access to the video recording, the PowerPoint, and a cool freebie that we're putting up for you. So that'll be towards the end. I think we're a couple minutes past, so I'm going to officially kick us off. So I want to welcome you to Is the Internet Making Your Firm Look Stupid? And I'm Rachel Gould. I'm here with Wendy Nemitz. We'll introduce ourselves in a moment, but first I just want to really thank you for being here. It's a really busy season right now. I hope you've all finished your holiday shopping. I'm sorry if you haven't.
Yeah, right.
I just want to remind you the internet will ship things really fast. So thank you for being here with all of the other things that sort of have a hold on your attention, all the stuff that you had to do already today that you've got on your mind for later. Thanks for taking some time to join us and to learn more about this topic. And I also want to really encourage you to ask questions. A lot of you have already found the questions portion of your GoToWebinar control panel. Ask us anything at any time. We'll get to them as handily as we can. And we love interaction, so please feel free to ask away. And we don't have to put your name with it, so you can ask the embarrassing internet questions. All right, so let's introduce ourselves.
Well, first of all, this is Wendy Nemitz, and I have the pleasure of introducing you to Rachel Gould. If you're not a fan already, I'll tell you the secret of Rachel. She heads up our online geekery department, self-titled, self-proclaimed. Almost everyone at Ingenuity secretly wants to join that department because it's so cool and they have so much fun and they do things like Google Hangouts and they talk about Hummingbird and they talk in a language that a lot of other people don't understand. However, their main goal as communications consultants is to take what they know about the online space and package it up so the conservative, trust requiring professional service firms that we serve every day can actually use it and gain a business benefit from it. And Rachel is very much respected and admired as well for authoring 2 published novels now and several others in the works.
Thank you. And I would like to introduce you to Wendy. I think a lot of you have already met Wendy, and you've probably seen her superpowers in action. But if you haven't, she combines 3 amazing powers: the ability to pull ideas out of seemingly nowhere, ability to see into the future a little bit, and to strategize between the two. So when you're working with Wendy, you can always count on getting great ideas that are really actionable, that have the future in mind.
Thank you. And you probably all are familiar with Ingenuity. We really focus on problems. A lot of people will call us up and say we need a website or a newsletter, and those are good questions. What we want to do, though, is help you back up to what are some of the problems that are causing your firm to not grow like you want to grow or get the premium clients, or maybe you're facing too much competition or undifferentiated competition. We really love to figure out what is the problem, what's holding you back, and then use the tools of marketing and growth to be able to solve it. And I'll show you a picture of our team. Now, whenever I show photos of our team, people always ask me one of 2 questions. The first question is, do you hire for beauty or brains? And I'll tell you, definitely I hire for brains, effectiveness, and capability. But sometimes people are skeptical. The other question they ask us is, do you hire men? And I say, yes, absolutely, we hire men. Just seemingly not as often as we've hired women in the past. We offer a full range of marketing solutions. We really want to help you keep the clients you have, develop the reputation that your specialized services deserve, help you generate leads and relationships, help you nurture those leads and relationships, and have a really strong team-oriented sales process that brings you the right clients, not just any clients. And so whenever you're encountering problems in any of those areas, you're welcome to give you a call or give us a call. We're not a fit for every problem in every firm, but we can pretty quickly determine if there's another resource that might be able to help you. How to look stupid.
So we thought we'd better start off with some very basic how-tos for how to really mess it up on the internet, how to really look like you're not coming across very well.
So I want to ask Rachel a question. Rachel, if you wanted someone to look stupid on the internet, what advice would you give them?
You know, my biggest advice actually would be don't be there.
Oh, so yeah, don't show up.
Don't show up, or Do that thing where you put your LinkedIn profile up once about 3 years ago. You never put a photo up, so you're just a little cutout.
So you're a ghost.
Yeah, and you've got like 5 connections. Do that, like have a really minimal presence or no presence at all, particularly if you have a great reputation in your community. If people are really getting to know you, they go online. And oh, here's the worst. Someone with a very similar or the same name to you is all over the place with a bad reputation. So you haven't gone and owned your name, owned your reputation online.
Interesting. I would say, there's a lot of things I think people do to look stupid on the internet, but one of the things I think they do is they don't understand that the tools of the internet are tactics. And so really they have to understand what their business strategy is before they apply their tactics. And so I hear people say, well, Facebook is so public, or I'm not going to share my family on the internet, and really what they're doing is they're ignoring the business value of the tools of the internet because they get an emotional response to them. And I think having an emotional response get in the way of learning about these very important tools is not smart. As a matter of fact, I once had a managing partner tell me honestly that he felt Facebook would be the end of the free world. And that was several years ago. And so far, it's not quite ended. So I think that kind of emotional over response can really stop people from using some very practical, very inexpensive business tools.
I think so. And I have to also chime in here for the younger generations, because that tends to be kind of a boomer generation, sometimes a Gen X response. But Gen Y, millennial response can also be emotional in the sense of getting really excited about it.
Yeah.
And putting either a lot of information out there that you shouldn't have in a professional context, or setting up a bunch of networks and then never putting anything else on them. You hear that Facebook's the flavor of the day. Well, this doesn't usually happen with Facebook,
right.
But Twitter, for example, you do 6 tweets and that's it.
Right. I think the other thing I noticed about Gen Y, and my children are all in their 20s, is that their privacy settings are very different than the baby boomers, of which I'm the tail end. And so, what to me is information that I might tell my very best friend, to them is information that they post on Facebook. And I think that not understanding how different generations and prospects and clients are on the internet, are using the various tools, is dangerous. And so I think ignoring these tools means you don't have a social media policy in place. It means you don't teach your team how to really be professional and effective with these tools. And then you get sometimes those mistakes of reputation.
Yeah, speaking of Facebook being the end of the free world, I'm amazed at what I can find about people on Facebook.
It's astounding.
Yeah.
I'm amazed at what they say. You know what my rule is no margaritas before Facebook.
That's a good rule.
It's a good rule. I think about social media sometimes, or really any of the online tools, as it's sort of like being at a party, and the rules of being in person and being considered a good guest or a professional in a networking event are just like the rules of the internet. I mean, some of the worst things you can do is not tell people you're coming, don't show up at all, dress poorly, bring nothing, just act like a really rude guest. And I think if your parents or wherever you learned how to be a good guest taught you how to do that, applying the same rules to the internet will really help you.
Yeah, it's really hard to mess up the internet if you think about being a great party guest. And the flip side of that, so the internet is a little funky because it exists in this space between interpersonal interaction and like print interaction. So it's like half a party and it's half a newspaper. So this next slide is about what we see happen sometimes when we talk to partners and firms about, writing more articles online, getting their expertise online. And this is kind of the newspaper side of it. They have a little bit of a freak out sometimes because that it sounds so formal
or uncontrolled,
right? And they want to over edit and overthink, and really sort of take all the vibrancy out of anything they would put online.
And just like at a party, you can't have a script for your conversation with people. The internet demands some flexibility and authenticity and sort of spontaneity.
Yeah, I would say a good analogy actually would be like a party where you're going to have to give a little speech. You want enough formality, like you prepped a speech ahead of time, but enough informality that you could maybe take questions, interact with people. So getting people over that hump about we're going to get your article online, people are going to read it, they're going to be able to search for it. That's another place where some firms fall down.
There's a lot of fear around that.
And I snuck us in a stat here. So this is from a survey of Inhouse counsel. And the quote's actually from the report that came out of the survey. In 2013, the lawyer who has his paralegal print his emails for him gets all his news from the print edition of the New York Times and thinks blog is a smudge on his tie. He's part of a dying breed. I thought it was important to get this in here. And if anyone wants a wealth of internet stats, let me know, because if you've seen me present before, you know I'm a stats queen. But I only put this one set in here because this, I think, sums it all up. So they talk about the in-house counsel they surveyed actually value attorney-authored blogs slightly more than media-branded blogs written by journalists. I found that stunning. I mean, I kind of think of journalists as being the top of the pinnacle of authority, and they're actually saying, as in-house counsel, they trust blogs written by attorneys slightly more.
But of course, the attorneys would have more specialized knowledge than the newspaper reporters. It would probably go deeper. So I could really see why that's true. And it really, if you have a good blog, it really provides you a powerful tool to distinguish yourself.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be a blog exactly, but any kind of articles on your website, contributed articles, guest blogging on other blogs. And then 53% of the in-house counsel they asked said they could envision a future in which a law firm's high-profile blog plays an important role in influencing clients to hire that firm.
Wow.
Yeah. But that said, here's my cautionary slide. Because you can date a website, but you marry a blog. So if you're really committed, we do see some firms where they're like, oh, we want a blog, or nowadays what's popular is, oh, we really want a video blog. And I'll show you an example in a little bit of one that worked, but we've also had some that failed, where specifically the firm says, oh, we want a video blog, design our website so the video blog is front and center.
Yep.
And then we go to actually record the video, and no one wants to record it.
Or they think that it takes so many hours to make a video. It's so super scripted, when really making a good video blog can take 20 minutes to record a video, edit it, throw it online.
Exactly. So not overcommitting, I think, is important. So when you see those stats about blogs, it doesn't mean that you have to run out and decide you're publishing, every week on a blog on your site. You might do a strategy where you're picking some guest blogs, you're doing some contributed articles, and then linking to them.
And getting your professionals kind of used to it.
Yeah, exactly. So we have some examples.
Well, there's plenty of examples of how to look stupid. We already went through "you're just not there." One of my favorite is when I go to LinkedIn and someone, you know how they give you all those people you might know, and people who do not have their photo uploaded, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you look amateur. Or if you have an inappropriate photo uploaded, even more amateur. And by appropriate, I mean wearing business attire. Your Cancun photo in a bikini top, I've seen it several times. My recommendation is that's not a professional photo. Other things I see is the information is managed by default. On LinkedIn even, which is probably the most common social media for professionals, you'll see LinkedIn pages, company pages where there's no information filled in, and you know that LinkedIn just auto created it. And it really makes you look like you're not moving with the times. One of the things I've seen from a lot of people is thinking that online is just going to go away and that all their business comes to them through a handshake or referral. And I would say if you're 65 years old or even 55 years old and you've done a great job networking, you might be able to go to the rest of your career with all your referrals, creating plenty of business for you and for your team. But if you're younger than that, that's just not how the world's moving. And you have to master some of the tools of the online space or trust your marketing people to help you. The other thing that we see that it's a bad example is inappropriate social media postings from members of the firm or from outsiders. And a lot of times we see someone delegate their company Facebook page to an intern. And the problem is that if somebody writes something like, your phone isn't working right now on your Facebook page, or I called you twice and you didn't respond to me, or something like that, the intern might not know how to deal with that fabulously. And the other thing we worry about is reputation damage and bad reviews. And I think a lot of people worry about that. And we'll go into some detail of that.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because actually a lot of studies have been showing that actually bad reviews in the B2C space sell products. Of course, good reviews sell products, but bad reviews sell products better than no reviews. And particularly, we're seeing the popularity of sites that rank attorneys. So there is the possibility to get bad reviews out there. And occasionally someone has a bee in their bonnet and they come after you online.
Especially business to consumer law. That's
Yeah,
much more common.
yeah, exactly. So, and if you're managing your reputation proactively, you're owning your social media profiles and updating them regularly, that begins to inoculate you against that kind of damage. And then we had an example that we wanted to put in about something that happened in social media that a B2C brand responded really well to.
Well, I was really impressed by this. The Ann Taylor Loft runs a really robust Facebook page. And what happened was they had some cargo pants for sale. This was a really big deal a year or so ago on the internet. They had some cargo pants for sale, which you can see above on the model. And people complained that they may look that great on tall, skinny models, but they don't look that great on regular women. And this was posted on the Facebook page. So instead of being defensive, which is the absolute worst thing to do, or ignoring it, which is the next worst thing to do, the person who was in charge of the Facebook page said, I think this is a really important comment. So what she did is she recruited her colleagues working at the Loft back office in various sizes and shapes of women, and they all modeled in the cargo pants, which you can see below. And then she posted the real women modeling in their cargo pants. And what that created was such a profoundly heard experience for the people who were posting on Facebook about their clothes. And they felt like real human beings who were really committed to them as customers of the Loft were behind the Facebook page, and it created a huge upswell in business for this company. So just because you get a bad review or you're afraid you might get a bad review, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be on sites where there are reviews. Reviews are so important. Feedback and conversation is so important, like conversation on Facebook. Just make sure it's really being monitored and that the people who are monitoring it know how to craft a really good response.
And I think, you can look at the Ann Taylor Loft example here and think, well, that doesn't really apply to law firms. It doesn't really apply to accounting firms or engineering firms. And it does. And I think that the way that in this example, the women are kind of walking the walk. Similarly, sometimes when we're consulting with clients of ours where they've gotten a negative comment on Facebook, for example, that's the most common.
Well, even think in the engineering space, everyone saw the horrible thing that happened in Minneapolis a few years ago when a bridge collapsed and people died. And it was really, it was just such a tragedy for our community. And there were people involved in the building of that bridge, the engineering of that bridge. And all of a sudden their reputations were in huge peril, which they had never thought that they would ever have a reputation hit like that. And if you haven't spent time creating a reputation, it's just a vacuum out there of a few smudges of empty photos, and something does happen, you're going to be in a world of hurt because, first of all, you don't know how to manage the crisis, and second of all, there's nothing to balance it out.
And most of the time, though, I don't want to scare people on the webinar that it's going to be the I-35 bridge collapse in their firms. A lot of times it's just people expressing a little gripe, a little complaint, like I called and you didn't answer the phone. Right. And, like in the Ann Taylor example here, that can be an opportunity to kind of put your money where your mouth is and post something, handle that complaint, and handle it in a way where you can also talk about the values of your firm. Then it's a real marketing opportunity.
It is. And let's hope we never get another bridge collapse anywhere in this country.
Yes, indeed. All right, so we have a couple more examples, and hopefully my sound quality is a little better. Thank you for our questioner who pointed out that I was too far from the mic. So other examples, you married that blog, but your last post was over a year ago. You have precisely 21 tweets, but you joined Twitter 2 years ago. Or Facebook posts or LinkedIn updates. When someone goes out, particularly to your company page, the news is old. There's not very much of it. Someone contacted you on a social network 6 months ago and you just found out, like someone sent you a LinkedIn in-mail, but you just found out about it now. That happens fairly often, actually. Or like in the attorney space, if you haven't managed your profiles and where people can review you, people have written reviews about you that you've never seen. That would be another example of that. And then some examples that just make me sad. You wrote a great piece for a print publication that is never going to see the light of the internet. And as soon as that print publication gets filed away, no one's going to be able to access that article again. Or you speak regularly, but the only people who ever see you speak are the ones who can physically show up. So you're not videoing and you're not posting even clips from your speaking engagements. That's just a big lost opportunity. And part of why those two make me sad has to do with Google's Hummingbird update. So put on your geek hats. We're going to geek out for a minute. So over the last three some years, Google has been moving towards prioritizing content that's useful to people, that has a lot of depth to it, and that's evergreen. So they started that.
And Rachel, tell us again what evergreen means in this specific context.
Evergreen specifically means basically longer articles that year in and year out people could learn from.
Okay.
So it may be that someone wrote an article about getting your taxes organized for a small business, that despite changes in the tax law year to year, it's still a great article. Google is trying to understand what those articles are so that it can do a better job of hooking people up with the kind of content they're looking for.
Okay.
And just to give an example, the last couple updates before Hummingbird, SEO experts were saying articles 400 words and over were starting to be more important. Now with Hummingbird, they're saying you should have some that are 1,400 words or over.
So in other words, Google's actually starting to act like human readers, because the kind of content I'm looking for is smart, evergreen, goes into depth in like a big white paper or something. And Google's starting to value that too.
Exactly. Google's starting to understand how people are using the internet. And they're optimizing more for mobile. So they're optimizing more for people asking questions. How do I X? How do I get bloodstains out of carpet? And they want to provide people with useful, longer pieces about that. Though if you are a specific kind of law firm, you will want to optimize for that search.
And I remember the first time that Rachel wrote a website when Hummingbird was coming out and she was reading about longer content. I almost had a heart attack as I was reviewing the website copy because it was so much longer than we generally write for pages. And I wrote a rather terse email to Rachel because I couldn't understand it. She's such a senior copywriter and knows what she's doing. And she said, "Oh, I'm just following Google, Wendy, and I'm going to need to tell everyone that we have to write longer copies for websites because that's one of the things Google is looking for now."
Yeah, and it doesn't mean you won't have shorter pages, and certainly video is huge also, so a short page with video on it, very valuable. But I think this is such great news for people in professional services because you're such experts.
Right.
You want to be able to write that long, in-depth article about something completely arcane, having to do with your area of law or your kind of engineering.
And have people find it and know you're the best in the world at it.
Yeah, and you'll notice actually if you're an avid Googler like I am, I started to notice a few months ago my search results on that first page would include articles from like 2007, which Google hadn't been doing up until recently. And you'll also see down at the bottom of your first page of results, sometimes they'll add a section called in-depth, where they have a lot of those longer articles. So basically, my summation about how to deal with Hummingbird here is create content for the fundamental needs, interactions, and questions of your prospective clients. Like if you think about what people really need to know that you can tell them, you're in good shape. And then once if you think in terms of pains, and we'll talk about this in a little bit more, that's a really good way to organize, your site architecture, the content, the kind of language you use.
I was just going to throw in this tip. And that is, I work with so many really great marketing people who spend a lot of time educating themselves, and they know a lot about what they want their firm to aspire to online, but they have a hard time selling it to the partners. Because usually the partners are 55 years old. They usually have a good network. They usually have gotten most of their clients from referrals from happy clients in their referral network. And so they're a bit puzzled by this space. So here's my tip. If you want to help sell a new website to your partners, you offer to give them a 15-minute update on marketing. And what you do is you show them the current competitors' best websites and then show them their own. If you want a new brochure, you ask the competitors for their good brochures and then you show them their own. Whenever you compare yourself to competitors and partners see that, immediately they get that we're not quite competitive as we used to be and that we need to improve our game. If you're just trying to sell a website to them in a vacuum and saying, well, we need social media plugins and we need this and we need search, it's so out of their world and it's expensive and it's a large group of firm resources dedicated to something they don't really understand, it's tough. So always show them what the best competitors are doing, and you usually get a little further. Gotta be awesome.
Yes, this is the part you've all been waiting for.
Oh, it's like being awesome at any party, Rachel. And you know, Rachel and I both are party girls. No, we're kidding. We're both introverts. At any party, pay attention to the invitation and thoughtfully respond. So, for example, if you're going to go on Facebook, have your 22-year-old son teach you a little bit about Facebook. It's almost all the socials are extremely intuitive, and there's lots of tools to manage your social media, so it doesn't take. The number one thing that people tell me is, oh, it will take too much time. It'll take hours. I don't have hours. You can manage your social media in 20 minutes a week. Dress up. So in other words, make sure your photos are good. Make sure your key messages about your firm are on your profile. Make sure you thoughtfully approached the tools. Bring something, especially something of interest. That might be a video of you talking about, I don't know, petrology. Oh, I'm the first one that used it in a sentence, so I win the prize today. Petrology being the word.
The word of the day is petrography.
Petrography.
We're buffing up on our engineering lingo.
So, and I just blew it, so Rachel wins. Anyway, bring something interesting about petrography.
Good job.
Which is hard to say, but very interesting. And be interested in other people's social. For example, on LinkedIn, we recently had a big article in the Minneapolis Tribune. And I think somebody has lost the audio. Has anyone else lost the audio?
We can't say that on audio. They can't hear us.
I'm just seeing if other people can. Jolene Coleman.
Okay. So if you can hear us, that's great. If you can't hear us, we can't tell you that you can't hear us, but we're going to work on that problem in the background.
Oh, thank you, Tammy and Adrian. Yep, Scott.
Oh, good.
We're back.
Good.
Great,
Perfect.
great. So be interested in other people. We were in the Minneapolis Star Tribune on Monday with a profile about our flexible workplace, and we put it up on LinkedIn and Facebook. And people liked it, and they put comments on it. And really, you have to come out of your shell, and you have to notice other people are being social online as well. And so it's very important that you just, pay a little bit of attention to it. It doesn't mean you have to spend hours and hours online. You could really spend half an hour on Friday morning catching up on your socials and be probably as far ahead as 90% of most of our professionals, I would say.
Well, and also, one thing that's really important to say here is that, so I love that when you brought up that we're introverts, because I think we both have our party strategies. Mm-hmm. Like if it's a professional party, like I'll look up who's there ahead of time that I want to meet. Mm-hmm. I'll stay in small groups because I'm more comfortable. You can do the same thing online. So if LinkedIn is the only network you're comfortable with, I'm cool with that. If you're in love with Twitter and you really want to be on Twitter and learn to use it professionally, that's great. You don't have to do everything all at once.
Right.
That's like trying to talk to everyone at the party all at once. Having a strategy, having a clear point of view, and mm-hmm. keeping it limited so that you don't freak yourself out.
Right.
And get yourself back off LinkedIn.
And I think marketing directors, for you, that what that means is introducing one of the social tools at a time and getting a few champions inside your firm. Because first of all, you're not going to get everyone on anything. And second of all, if you introduce LinkedIn and then maybe a little while later you take a real avid use of LinkedIn users and help them get on Twitter, it's one step at a time is the professional services marketing way.
Yeah, exactly. And the overall strategy that you're going to want for your firm at the marketing level is going to be different than what individuals can do at the individual level. Yeah. So let people kind of pick their pace and pick their strategy. All right. So I wanted to show you some real examples because I know there's a point where you're like, what? What are you talking about?
Abstract. Yeah.
So this is an example with a client of ours who gave us permission to use his example. And the first step to really thinking through how to have an awesome online presence, one way to come at it is to think about clients, prospects, and referral sources finding you online. So over on the right-hand side, you can see that we typed in independent pharmacy accounting. And our guy is Alan Sykes of Sykes & Company. He is the third one down. You'll see his video there. And what's interesting about this is that first listing is actually a competitor of his, and they've still got the #1 spot.
Because they're a much bigger firm than Allens.
They are.
And they have multiple locations. SS&G is a really strong, large accounting firm.
Exactly. So he's kind of David versus Goliath. And you'll see that not only is he the #3 spot, he's the #4 spot, the #5 spot, and the #6 spot. So if you type this in and you just look down this page, sure, you see the competitor there. It's going to be hard to get them out of the #1 spot, but he owns most of the rest of that page.
And he owns the only photograph on that page.
Exactly, which is a very clickable, interactable moment.
And you really have to understand the strategy behind this online marketing with this particular firm. He has clients all over the country, and they're clients that meet together in associations, but they're not all in the same geographic area. Mainly they're in small towns across the country. So online was the smartest strategic way to go.
Exactly. So step one is people need to find him, or they need to find you.
Yep.
And then what happens when they do find you? Do they like what they see? And I like, this is just a picture of his video. I'm not actually going to play it, but you can always YouTube him or go to his website, and you'll see his videos, and they're very informal. Because we like that feel, because he does talk via video to most of his clients. We like that feel. If he's in his office, you're sitting down with him, you're just having a conversation. And in these video blogs, he answers common questions that independent pharmacists have about their accounting. So the question isn't, how do you get the slickest, coolest, most polished, beautiful thing ever? It's who are your specific clients? What do they need to see when they come to your website or to your social media properties that's going to engage them?
And I also think Alan Sykes particularly has this vibrant, interested, passionate personality. And he's this very regular guy, very humble, very matter of fact, who just loves what he does. And video was a perfect way to get him all across the country and to get his sort of energy and his charisma to independent pharmacists, most of whom are really struggling to find accounting help.
And there are a lot of people who find it easier to do video than to do written.
Yeah.
In this example, we actually Skype call him and interview him on video. So all he has to do is sort of think about the subject and say his natural smarts. And another example would be if you have a lot of subject matter experts who are just brilliant, but they're terrible writers. We do a lot of ghostwriting where we call up, we interview, and we do a written article instead of a video. So it's a lot less pressure for people who are camera shy. But there are a lot of ways to get the right content for your clients and your prospects out of your experts without overburdening them.
I would say the worst way to do that is to tell the experts to write an article because, for example, we had an attorney client once who wrote a blog post and it took 8.5 hours. Now, I've never spent more than 30 minutes writing a blog post unless it was a brand new subject for me.
Yeah.
And I think really having ghostwriters and videographers and some resources that they can count on makes it happen for them. They're so busy.
Yeah, I think now if you want to watch people freak out, just tell them that Google says they have to write 1,400 word articles and get cracking. All right, so step one, they found you. Step two, they like what they see. Step three, it needs to draw them into closer engagement with your firm. So these are from the homepage of the Sykes site. There's this great Ask Sykes button. You can email questions in. They go right to Alan. He responds. And they also have, because he's a big Twitterer, tweeter. We've got his latest tweets, and I will let in on a little secret, which is that sometimes we pre-compose his tweets before a trade show for him because he's so busy talking to people. So that's another way you take the pressure off.
And how do you pre-compose and how do you set them up to come out automatically, Rachel, during a trade show?
Hootsuite is a program. There's a free version and an inexpensive pro version, and it allows you to schedule in advance. So we can actually have the tweets written. And they're talking about the sessions he's presenting, so it's easy to have subject matter. And then he approves them, we schedule them ahead of time. So all he has to do is show up and respond, which is much easier than, there's a lot of pressure to compose something when you're on a trade show floor dealing with questions. It's much easier to know that's going out automatically and just, people are going to show up.
And that's called Hootsuite, like the owl.
Yeah, HOOTSUITE. Try the free version if you haven't. It's awesome. And if you need help with it, email me. So here's my breakdown slide. So people need to find you. You do that through SEO and social media. When they do find you, they need to like what they find, which you do through content, and also content. And then you need some good calls to action that draw them into engagement with your firm. And FYI, all your calls to action shouldn't be call us. Some people are kind of phone adverse, so you need like download this, watch this, send us a note, ask us a question, call us, all of those different kinds of calls to action.
You know, when we talk about how people get to your website or however they can contact you, we really talk about SEO and a term we coined called REO. Not REO Speedwagon, which actually was the first band I ever saw as a sophomore in high school. Not that. Search engine optimization, as you know, SEO, is how people Google you or use other search engines, and they're looking for pavement engineering, or they're looking for a lawyer with real estate experience in South Dakota, or they're typing something into the box and they're looking at that sheet that comes up and deciding virtually instantly what they're going to click and what they're going to click off of. So search engine optimization is one thing. The other thing is referral engine optimization, which is so important for virtually all of our clients get a lot of their prospects through referral. And so what happens if I get a referral to your name and to another similar firm in your geographic location, because of course I have more than one friend, even as an introvert, I go to your website and I go to their website, and your website makes me want to call you. It's better than your competitors. It talks to human beings. It has great photos. It has important content that I'm interested in. And I know you're looking for prospects like me. And so creating an online presence that both satisfies Google and satisfies real human beings is tough. But as you said with Hummingbird, it's getting a little bit easier.
And I think, in terms of referral engine optimization, the younger the prospect is, the more crucial your web presence is. Because, I mean, what sometimes the partners 55 and up don't get is that if I go to your website and it's not good, I don't trust you. If you can't put together a decent website, why am I going to give you my money?
You look like an amateur.
Right, exactly.
Interestingly, recently I was looking for a professional service. So I was talking to several people looking for a different service provider, and I didn't have a personal name that I knew. And so I talked to a couple of my friends, and my friends gave me 2 referrals, which I then immediately looked up online. So I went from referral engine optimization right to their website. And what was interesting though is after I read their websites and looked through the service and learned enough so I could ask intelligent questions, then I went back to search engine optimization and I Googled the service and I looked for other providers in my area. And interestingly, I found one firm that I had never heard of, but that had such a great website, I called them. So REO and SEO really play back and forth in terms of how prospects find you.
Yeah, definitely. So we wanted to give you some examples. So this is what referral engine optimization sounds like on the prospect end. You need an accounting firm? Look at this one. I think they have what you need. Or what was the name of that lawyer who wrote that great article I read last year about employment law changes? And they'll actually Google, Bloomington attorney employment law and try to find the article. Because the point here is referrals can come from human beings, but they can also come from other information resources, something you read in a print magazine or an online magazine.
And then speaker you saw a year ago.
Yeah. And then for search, what someone might just be Googling around, what do I need to know before we start this building project? We're looking at putting up a X many story high building, and I need to know what is the latest in concrete. What's the latest in foundations? Or if I've got some vapors I've got to dispose of, and they're not looking for a person specifically yet. They're just researching their project. But if your firm comes up as being an expert in that, now you're in their mind. Or, I have a question my accountant, attorney, engineer isn't answering. I suspect that my accountant's not doing everything for me that they can. I'm going to Google that piece of tax code myself.
Or that last construction project we did was way over budget. I think I'm going to look into why things go over budget, and then they find a different construction firm website and they really like it.
Exactly.
The internet has introduced a completely different set of factors into the whole sales game.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of times when we talk about search engine optimization with partners and firms, they think we just mean someone who's searching for Bloomington divorce attorney. And it's not always that. It's people who are researching a topic And a lot of people use article clipping services like Evernote, or I think it's built into some of the browsers now, where you see an article you like, you just clip it. Months later, you come back. If that was authored by your firm, you're in the lead now.
So what is the big secret? This feels so confusing. It feels so big. And it feels like all of a sudden I'm 20 years old again and I have to learn the whole marketing field all over again. And, that actually is true. I thought when I started working in professional services marketing in 1987, I would say from like 1987 to 1995, I learned my craft. And now in the last 6 years, I've learned my craft all over again. So I had a nice period in the middle where I sort of knew what I was doing. Now it seems like every month we have to learn a new thing. But I think the big secret is really classic marketing. Begin with a clear audience target in mind and end with a clear audience target in mind. Because if you know that all of your clients are 55-year-old men who make X to X and own this types of companies, it's pretty easy to find out where they hang out, what they look at, what's important to them, and focus on that. And sometimes it's online, sometimes it isn't. But you know that part of the sales process, part of it will always go online no matter what the age group of the prospect is.
Also, this is the antidote to another of the faux pas that I'm not sure we talked about, but is like websites or social media that just talks all about you and your firm.
We call that, speaking in French, the we website.
Exactly. So if you have your audience in mind and their needs, your combined 325 years of experience is not what they want to hear about.
Right. They want to know you can solve a certain problem.
Yeah. And an easy way to break it down is, what pains are they coming in with? And there's only a handful of them. What questions do they commonly have? And you can get those from your best BD people. From your partners in the firm. What do you get asked over and over and over again? When someone new starts with you, what do they ask?
You know what else is a really good place to find out what your clients and prospects, or what your prospects are kind of looking for, is talk to your centers of influence as your referral sources. Because I hate to tell you this, but they don't always refer your firm.
What?
Sometimes they refer other firms, and they have very specific reasons in their mind why your firm is a fit for this, but not that. Your firm is a great fit for green, but not orange, for example. And it's really enlightening to talk to people who have referred you, your centers of influence, and ask them what they think you solve and who are you a best fit for, because they might not be right.
Yeah, that's a twofer, because then you get to kind of help after you're done listening. Say, by the way, let me tell you about this, and then make sure things are benefit focused. People don't read online; they scan. So if you didn't make it, so you've got bullet point benefits. Here's what's in it for you. Boom, boom, boom. There you go. And that's also, it's a good hint if you're in social media and you're curating content, making it really clear okay, I'm retweeting this article. What's the benefit to my followers of reading it? Adding that kind of benefit value, that makes a big difference. So I'm thinking before we hit our next section, we should pause and encourage people to ask us questions, or see if we have questions for each other, because we have not gotten enough questions yet. So y'all out there, do you have pain points or things that really trip you up online that you worry about? We won't share anyone's name in this section, but I'd love to hear a couple of concerns. My biggest question is, what do I do on Twitter when I get totally bored with it?
My big question is, what do I do on Twitter at all? Because I've tried so many times to really get Twitterized, and I just can't speak in 140 characters.
Neither can Stephen King. Did you see that article? It was so good. It was titled, Stephen King Gets on Twitter, Immediately Gets Writer's Block. And I think to some degree, for some people who aren't going to be giant Twitter users, it's okay to be there, to occasionally share something, and to just be accessible. Like I get it on my phone if someone tweets me. So I'm not always, you won't see me tweeting every week. Right. Sometimes big fans go where I'm just not in a tweeting mood. But if anyone wants to access me, they can get a hold of me. If anyone's got a question, I'm right there. So.
Well, and I predicted the demise of Twitter 2 years ago, and in the meantime, 65 million billion zillion people have joined. So I'm wrong.
Have you seen what the stock price is at too?
No.
Yeah, no. Do we have any other questions we should answer? All right, here we go. Section 3. But really, how do we do that? So I always like to do some tactics. so that you can really drill down. So this is a little map of the least you need to know when you're putting smart stuff online. So again, how not to look stupid. So you need to know why you. Why would I pick your firm over someone else's firm? Like, what makes you different? Um, and then you need to know the pains of your audience, which answers the why now. A lot of you are sometimes selling against the status quo. So like I may or may not need your service right now. Yeah, okay, sure, I should do an estate plan, or yes, we should get that concrete tested maybe one of these days. But we don't need it this month. We don't need it right now. So tapping into my pain as a prospect helps me understand why this is going to benefit me to do it now. Stages of the buying cycle. So, and that particularly goes to questions. If I'm just thinking about this, what questions do I have? If I'm about ready to buy, what different questions do I have? And then what you've already said, because you want to link your smart content to your other smart content. So we've got a spreadsheet, I'll give you the link to it in a little bit, that includes a way to kind of just categorize what you've already got out there, so you can easily grab the links and put it in a status update for social media or at the foot of a blog post, any of that. And then I've got a couple examples of buying cycles. Oh, before I do that, I've got a keyword tool. This is now the Google AdWords tool. You can still get there by Googling Google Keyword Tool, but it's in your AdWords account, but it's still free, so don't panic. And you can use it just to find out what are people searching for. So you'll see here in my example, I put in, the top 3 are the phrases that I put in by hand. And you can see they're all high competition. But for example, small business accounting gets 40,000 local monthly searches, local being the US, whereas cash flow small business gets 1,300. So you might want to write more articles about small business accounting if that's something you do, using that actual phrase. And then you can see down below, it suggests other possible phrases. So for example, operating cash flow, low competition, 74,000 local searches. So if I have something to say about operating cash flow and how to manage that, deal with it, think about it, you might want to write something about that.
So Rachel, can I ask you a really basic question?
Yes.
If I want to use the Google Keyword Tool, do I just type in Google Keyword Tool into Google?
Yeah, or well, nowadays they just this fall wrapped it into AdWords, so you can you're going to need a Google account, but you can just make one up.
So I go into AdWords and sign into an account.
Yep. So and the Google Keyword Tool link is still live, so you can Google that, follow that link, or go to AdWords, sign in.
So it's probably easiest to set up an AdWords account, like you were going to buy some words.
Yeah, exactly. And then it'll say Keyword Planner, and then I think it's search for ideas. Okay. And it's over on the left nav. And then you just put in some keyword ideas. You can put in your website URL, and it will generate this report.
So for people who haven't done this, understanding which phrases people use to search for people like you gives you all this power. So if you write an article or a blog post, or you're writing your copy for your website, you can make sure some of these phrases are included on the page. And then all of a sudden your Google searches should improve, yes?
Oh, yeah. And you can even use the phrases to figure out what to write about.
Oh, okay.
If you're like, hey, what should we write about in our newsletter? Oh, well, people clearly have a lot of, questions about indirect cash flow or net cash flow. Let's do a cash flow article. Let's talk about small business cash flow, and we'll hit some of these phrases by answering common questions.
Okay. See, at Ingenuity, somebody else always does the AdWords for me, Rachel and her team. So I wasn't really clear exactly how that's done. So I hope that helps those of you who, like me, have never actually done it.
Yes. All right, so this is tool number 1. Tool number 2 is to map the buying cycle of your prospects. So, this is a great one, I think, from HubSpot. So you can see it starts out with the circles there with strangers, going all the way to promoters. So people start out, they don't know you at all. Ideally, they come along the cycle, they convert, and then they turn into someone who wants to talk about how awesome you are. And here they've got it broken down with the different kinds of content that can make a difference at that stage. And then I have a way more complicated example, so don't panic when you see this.
I'm panicking.
I thought so. I love this one. This is actually for stereo equipment.
Okay.
But I loved how and I think this is from Harvard Business Review, actually. They posted this example, and from Frog Design. You see the different stages here, where OOBE stands for out of box experience, since it actually comes in a box. But I love that they included questions, motivations and questions and barriers. So you could grab this same format as a way to think through how prospects are approaching you when they approach. And so your web and social content should mirror the answers to these questions.
Can you imagine how powerful this tool would be if it's not only helping you map out your marketing content, but it's actually helping you do your sales training as well?
Mm-hmm.
If I had something like that to create a sales system for a firm, it would be an amazing power tool.
Yeah, because then you also can do sales questions and that fancy stuff that I'm sure we'll do a webinar about later. So keyword tool, buying cycle, and then your third step is listen. So you've got some content out there already. Use tools like Google Analytics is one. Hootsuite also has great analytics. If you use a link shortener like Bitly, that's got analytics in it. Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, they all have analytics built into them. So make sure that you're using your analytics and maybe generating, monthly or quarterly reports to see, hey, what content is getting shared the most? What's getting read? Can we track some content that's actually turning into leads and sales, and make that content the priority to write more about? So if you say, oh, every time we write about this topic, we get a ton of responses and we get a couple new leads, obviously you want to keep writing about that. I have a whole slide to tell you that. There you go. Repeat topics of interest. And then just remember to keep lines of communication open. So, talk to your prospects and clients offline. You could train your partners to ask, to report questions back to you, so that you know what to put in the next newsletter, what to put on the website. So those are the basics, and then here's the fancy widget I promised you. We have an example editorial calendar that will help you think about pieces of content. This is the spreadsheet that also has the content library page in it. So it's a really neat way to think about, okay, what piece of content are we going to put out there? What keyword is it associated with? What's the offer or call to action? What's it connecting to? Because you want things to connect to each other. Including older pieces of our own content. So all of that, this is all online. And here you can see at the bottom is your URL, ingenuitymarketing.com/smart. So if you go there, this is what's in the spreadsheet, editorial calendar, all of that, place to put your keywords, probably more than you might need, some of you, so we won't be offended if you delete pages and stuff. But if you go to the Smart link below, you can download a free copy. We'll put the copy of this webinar up there, both as a PDF and as a video. So that'll all be accessible. And then while you're out there, we also have an awesome newsletter. So you can sign up for our newsletter if you haven't already. And you'll get future information about other webinars and other info. And I'm going to go back and forth for a minute. So you can see also, I want you to get these are our Twitter handles, our emails, and our website. So if you have questions, shoot us an email. If it's geeky, send it to me. If you just need pure straight up brilliance or cocktail party help, send it to Wendy. Or copy both of us and we'll sort it out ourselves. Yeah. So that's our basic info. And then we have like a minute for a question and then.
Yeah, and I'd really like to thank you for attending. I just see so many people who are so afraid of the online space that I think that they don't realize that there's this whole generation of tools that a few firms are out there really using well. And the firms that are using them well are making money and they're growing. There's all sorts of statistics that firms that get most of their leads online are 4 times more profitable than firms that get none of their leads online. And that sort of willingness to embrace new technology makes a huge difference in the culture and profitability of the firm.
Absolutely. I'm going to take you back for a minute to this one in case anyone didn't get a chance to write down the URL there. And yeah, my last takeaway piece of info that I want to offer is I think I just saw a study that social media spam is up 355% this year over last. So pick 1 or 2 things and do it well.
Right.
Pick 1 or 2 channels, do it well.
Be the quiet but interesting, deep, thoughtful and present person at the party rather the person that tries to sort of glad hand everyone.
Exactly, which I think will be easier for your firm and for your experts. It'll feel better and you'll get higher quality leads. So thank you very much for taking the time to attend our webinar today. We certainly welcome emails, thoughts, feedback, and
if we can be of any assistance, either online or offline, in helping you grow your firm, we'll be glad to come and talk to you or set up a conference call. We're not a fit for every firm, but we'd be very glad to answer your questions and help you grow. Thanks so much.